I've come to Liverpool and today I'm in the Anfield Cemetery, the first of the municipal cemeteries built in this city. The cemetery was opened in 1863. Now I've not been here before, so we're just going to take a little time to wander through it and explore some of the memorials. There are a number of entrances into this cemetery, on all four sides I believe. I've come in the entrance midway along Priory Road. Just to my left as I come in is this tall obelisk, and the inscription at the bottom here reads, "To Betsy Thompson, the beloved wife of John Smith, physician, surgeon, brackets Royal Navy, who died 1872, and also John Smith." There's a very tall and elaborate one here, again just inside the entrance, and the inscription on the side reads, "William Bottomley Bairstow, an upright and unassuming man," and further down, "Valuable services in the select vestry of the parish, in the council chamber of the borough, and the burial board of this cemetery, as well as in various social institutions in the town of Liverpool." One thing I do notice coming in this entrance, Priory Road, is all the gravestones, almost all the gravestones, are facing away from us. So we've come in an entrance and we're looking at the back of all the memorials. Presumably this wasn't the main entrance in that case. A tall and well decorated, again an obelisk, and the inscription is "To Owen Owen," and Esther his wife, and Margaret Owen their daughter. What a total mess. For those of you fluent with the Welsh language, a large tomb here. It's not quite clear who in particular the family is. There are numerous names around the outside. We've got Mitchells, Kerr, Harrison, Stevens on that side. Here we've got Ashton Hewitt, William Landells, Corrie, Rickards, Wileys, Jones, Smith. And as we move around this side, we can see Clements, Hamid, Jones, Wallace, and numerous other names. Not quite clear what the connection is, but it's an interesting tomb. Oh, Liverpool. How can you remember your citizens of this city by leaving their memorials in a state like this? Almost all of them pushed over. It's ridiculous. One here that's standing. Further down we've got Thomas Hughes, pilot of this port, and Thomas Lewis, the son, who was also a pilot. Rather nice carving, stone masonry work at the top and around the sides. This is William Lewis, and then the inscription is in Welsh. One here where the stone cross has been carved in a sort of wood effect, and the bit at the bottom is a pile of stones, or is carved to look like a pile of stones. It's Martha Williams and Henry Williams, who died in 1904. A tall one here in a sort of white polished stone. A number of inscriptions to the Webster family. One in particular, William, the fifth son of John Webster, who was lost at sea, aged 64 years. Always good to know a little bit about the person. So Elizabeth was the wife of James Campbell. He was a builder of Glasgow, and a number of their children there. And tucked away amongst the stones here, one of the war graves, A.Y. Kenny, 40th the King's Regiment, died 1946, aged 30. And it mentions another member of the family below. There's a section here which is lower than the rest, and around the outside are very many memorials to more recent deaths. And then further around, again in this lowered section, many more memorials of people that have died in the last few decades. This one here is to Stanley Douglas Duff, LACRAF, son of Robert and Mary Duff, who was accidentally killed while flying, 1941, aged 22. Some very elaborate carving on this memorial. You've got a lady there holding a baby in her arms, and further down the stone you noticed one of the names is Richard, the infant son of Margaret. So presumably that's Margaret, that's her infant son. And we've got another figure down here blowing a trumpet, so maybe that's another member of the family. Nicely done on the stone. I'm afraid we've come to another area now where a large number of the stones have been pushed over. A very grand one here, very nice stone, elaborate work at the top and the piers. Difficult to read the inscription, but it appears to be George Cope, C-O-P-E. Behind that is another sunken area where there are more modern memorials. Seems to be a sort of standard type stone for these. And the ones in front are dating from the sort of 1990s, a decade. One here, although each side of it, the other memorials have been pushed over. But this one here, the family name is Slater, and I was interested to see the inscription at the bottom here. William Thomas Wilson, son of the above, was killed in action at Thrones Wood, 1916, aged 23. Another one here, very similar to what we saw earlier, with a multitude of names on it. But you can read on the end of this, it says Margaret Place, who died May the 1st, aged 77 years. She was the first person interred in this cemetery. Again, we've got the appearance of a bomb site with all these stones pushed over. A little further in, we've got another area on a lower level. And again, the more modern memorials are placed around the outside, and all of a very regular size and shape. And the ones I can see from here are sort of 1980s. And they go right the way around this circular dip in the ground. Although in the middle are some older stones. Next to it we have the area for those remembered who gave their lives in the war. And on panels all the way along are the list of names. And then we pan round to the central cross. And over there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 more panels of names who died. One here to Bill, William James, who was accidentally killed in 1924. You kind of wish you knew a little bit more about that, but that's all they tell you. Just had to include this one. I just love that surname. And interestingly enough, down here it says to Tom from his workmates. So Tom's medal was highly thought of. Interesting amongst this row of black stones is this rather startling white stone, both in its colour and in its height. Unfortunately, the inscription doesn't tell us very much about the people. Probably the largest in the cemetery, at least in footprint, is this mausoleum. Alexander McLennan, civil engineer of Buena Vista, Seaforth. Though being a civil engineer, I assume he designed his own tomb before he left us. Next to it we have this black statue with the angel on top, and the inscription is to George Wright, killed by explosion at Bakritsa, Archangel, Russia, 1916, age 47. Some information on this one. We have John Duncan, Jr., Scholar of Selwyn, Cambridge. Passed away after a brief illness. And then further down we've got Walter Duncan, Lieutenant, King's Liverpool 8th Regiment, and then other names as we go down. An unusual design here. Annie, wife of John Charles Gunn. Up to an area now where the stones are a little grander, a little more expensive to put in place in the first time. This one here has got the iron posts around it, presumably had some sort of chains between them to protect the area. The name on the front is Margaret Ellen, daughter of William and Jane Chadwick. She died aged 9. This obelisk here is to Thomas Brakel of Liverpool, aged 45. It was erected jointly by his widow and children and a number of his fellow townsmen. And further down, he supported public charities, especially the Blue Coat Hospital, of which he was throughout his life an earnest and valuable supporter. This one here with a sort of Celtic cross design, very elaborately carved, is to David Rollo. Over the other side of the path, one with 3 stone steps, white stone, just tells you it's James Fisher Jones, and very little else about him, and a few of his relatives on the other panels. And as they all try to outdo each other in the height of the monument, this one at the moment looks to be the highest, and it's to James Smith and Mary his widow. And yet we know nothing about them. Competing for height is this Celtic cross, equal highest I can see in the cemetery, and it's in memory of Samuel James Warreen. Doesn't tell you anything else, at least nothing about why he should warrant such a long, high cross. But they have put his likeness here in a copper or brass panel. A couple of very elaborate ones here. The one on the left is clearly falling apart. They've got some red tape around it, just to warn you that it's in a dangerous condition. And the inscription is to Robert Pemberton Dalgleish. The elaborate one alongside is difficult to read the inscription. One of the surnames on there is Barker. Behind is another very solid piece of stone in this polished finish, light grey. But unfortunately, the inscriptions are very difficult to read in that stone. Memorials alongside, the more reddy coloured one is Hugh William Todd, and then one next to it, Arthur Walton. But they tell you nothing about the person at all. This one's very elaborately carved cross with all the flowers running up it, and the name at the bottom is Alfred George Dixon. One standing here with a figure of Jesus on top, one assumes, and again the memorial just tells you the name and the dates. Thomas Charles Dolan, his wife Mary Christiana, and Harold and Nora Dolan. One here under the tree, but not possible to find the name on it, although there's Some elaborate carving on the end. The tree seems to be growing up between the two memorials. We've got a large one here, Raymond de Laringa. Very busy one here. The stone at the back is the family of Noblet, Jane Noblet, James Noblet, and a few others. But it's not the same name here. Around this side it reads Hannah Newbury. So not clear what the connection is between the two surnames. And it very much looks like it's an afterthought on this memorial for the Noblets. This one caught my eye amongst the modern memorials as being something quite different. It's the family of Brennan, and then we've got a picture presumably of one of the Brennans, and then we've got some flowers to show it's looked after and remembered, and a date on the bottom there. So a different sort of memorial. There is this derelict chapel here in the grounds. It's lost its roof and its windows, but there are quite a number of inscriptions along the side there, difficult to read through the railings. Dates seem to be early 1900s. To show you this quite elaborate memorial here. It was taken because of the surname, well-known Liverpool surname. I've no idea whether it has any connection with the Tarbucks we know. But it's a very elaborate design here. There's even a face of a lady in here. And on the side, another one. There's another inscription down here. James Henry Tarbuck. An interesting one here. Very elaborately made and carved. Unfortunately though, the main inscription inside has faded away, or flaked away. You can see Hannah of John. This one here is also very elaborate. We've got 4 angels at the foot of the cross, and then we've got a sort of cathedral type designed roof, pitched roof, and I'm not quite sure what that is. And then at the bottom it says to Nathaniel Huntingdon. And if we move round to this side here, Archie, the beloved husband of Emily Duckett, a nephew of the late N. Huntington. Just a couple of 100 yards further down from the last chapel we saw with the roof missing, here is another one. Again, roof missing, glass in the windows gone, and there are memorial panels in the side of this building. Group of larger memorials here, the surnames clearly on the bottom. Larking, Bunny, Lippincott, Wesley Lloyd for the very tall one, and the last one I can't see it. Beside the path here are 3 war grave memorials, but not quite like the English or British ones. Looking at the inscriptions, I'm suspecting they're probably Dutch or Belgium. There's a memorial here to the civilians who died, or some of the civilians who died during World War II. It reads, "Erected by the citizens of Liverpool to the memory of all those who gave their lives during the attacks from the air upon the city, of whom 554 are buried in this communal grave." And it's good to remember the civilians, but just look at the state of this memorial. Stones broken, missing, panels missing over there. It's not been swept or cleaned for a long time. just weeds growing here. It's not good. An elaborate piece of stonework here. Interesting on this memorial, because it's to Roland Owen, Norworth Ap Roland Owen, 2nd Lieutenant, Royal Flying Corps, killed in action single-handedly against 5 enemy planes. But what I like about it is the likeness of the man above in the stone. I always like a memorial that tells you what somebody did. And John Williams was a tile merchant who died in 1914. Just outside the chapel, the one that still retains its roof and is still in use, are 2 memorials to those that won the Victoria Cross. This one is William P. Mylott, York and Lancaster Regiment, awarded the Victoria Cross for valour at Lucknow, India. He led an attack against enemy positions whilst under heavy fire. And alongside is one to Joseph Prosser, awarded the Victoria Cross for valour at the siege of Sevastopol, Crimea, for assisting a severely wounded comrade. And at the end of the chapel are all these recent, in the past 20 years, memorials, all very similar in the black stone, gold writing, almost all the same height. And another area of more modern memorials, and almost all of them of the same sort of black stone and gold writing. Well, I'm about to leave the cemetery now. I come up to another gate, another way in and out, but again we've got this very sad site where the majority of stones are pushed over. Now, it may be that it has been vandalised, but even so, firstly, the council should have protected the cemetery better, and secondly, if it has been vandalised, they should be re-erecting them. And once the stones are over flat like this, they don't last very long, and a decade's time they'll bulldoze them all up and turn it into a open grassy area. Disappointing. Come on, Liverpool, get your finger out and get this sorted. You're a great city. You need to do something with this cemetery. Till the next time.